everybody. This is Earl Foote, founder, CEO of Nexus IT. Joining you here in studio for TechBeat, where leaders learn, innovate, and grow. I'm joined by my good friend, Chad Ingram from Distro. We'll get around to Chad here in just a moment after we take care of a couple of housekeeping items. Quickly, wanted to remind everybody, these TechBeat episodes are now on all major podcast platforms. We'd love your support. Go follow us wherever you listen, Apple or Spotify or Pandora, whatever your jam is. My friend Sean Ritchie from nClouds is going to be joining me on June 13th as well. Mal, is that at noon on June 13th? Yeah, okay, so 2 p.m. Sorry, not noon. That one's going to be 2 p.m. So 2 p.m. Mountain, look out for that episode. Sean and his friend Dan Caffey. I don't know if you know those guys.
Both of them. Yeah.
Yeah. They built a cool company called Team. They sold it to WeWork right before WeWork imploded. Perfect timing.
Great timing.
Yeah. And they're both great guys. So I'm excited to have Sean on and kind of share his story here in about a month, really about 3 weeks, I guess. Just a reminder, this is live. Wherever you're joining us from, feel free to post any of your questions you might have. On any social media platforms or comments. We'll be trying to take some of those live as we go throughout the hour or towards the end. Do want to thank Mallory Lovestad, our manager of branding and marketing, who's in studio with us and taking care of all the broadcasts and everything today. So let's get around to Chad Ingram. Chad, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's nice to be on this side of the mic, you know, and get to relax and share a little bit of my story.
You don't have to be the interview. I've been in your studio. Maybe 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah.
By the way, we've tried to do this 3 times now.
Right.
Yeah. When was it? December, you got sick.
Yeah. And then
January, I got sick.
You got sick. And then I think someone got sick again, or we had to move it for something.
Yeah.
But it was kind of wild.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you're healthy.
Anyways, thank you. And I'm glad you're here. This is actually happening. I'm glad you're healthy too. Let me tell you a little bit about Chad with his bio here. So Chad Ingram was a philosophy student turned entrepreneur. He left BYU during his last semester to start on a journey that led to the creation of Distro, a rapidly growing marketplace addressing the global labor supply chain in the tech industry, with exits from both Scout and Jump. Chad, an off-road race car driver, is navigating uncharted territories. Chad is supported by his incredible wife Jordan and is a father of 3. All right, Chad. So I remember we met when you were doing Jump. Probably a little before COVID.
It was definitely before COVID. Yeah. So we started that in early 2017.
Okay. Yeah.
It was tail end of 16, January of 17.
Cool. Well, let's, I find entrepreneurial journeys super fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really cool just to understand and know the real people behind the story and, kind of childhood to the entrepreneurial journey. I think, there's always a misnomer around founders. The reality is most of us are really just normal people that grew up in very normal sorts of, blue collar or white collar neighborhoods, and at some point we were crazy enough and maniacal enough to commit to a dream and actually try to build it.
Right.
I think those stories are really fascinating. So I want to start way back, wherever you want to start in childhood. Let's kind of just, tell everybody about your story, where you grew up, your formative years and what you feel like really led you to become, a 3-time founder.
Yeah.
2-time successful exits. And to get you, to this journey where you're at today.
Yeah. Man, that's a loaded question. So let me figure out where to start. It's not a bad question. There's just so much.
Let's just start where you grew up. Let's start about childhood. What was that like?
I grew up in Los Angeles, California, in a suburb called Glendora. It's like 20 minutes from Disneyland for those that know the area, or 7 minutes from Pasadena kind of area, right in the foothills. Beautiful kind of conservative little suburb of LA that's generally a little bit more liberal, I would say. A lot of business owners in the area. My dad was a business owner. There's definitely like nice neighborhoods in town, but we lived on the not so nice part of town.
Me too.
Yeah, totally. So
I grew up on the west side of Salt Lake.
West Valley, right?
Yeah, West Valley. Yep.
But Glendora was a nice place to grow up. My dad was a caterer and a small business owner, and it's kind of wild, like the early story of my family and like how things sort of came together. My mom and dad met in college. They got married. They were both from Southern California, went back after college and started having kids. They had 7 kids. I was the last of the 7. And my mom passed away when I was 10 days old. She was 33.
Wow.
Yeah, really young. And not from childbirth even, just
really.
Yeah, she had a heart condition and somehow survived childbirth, and then died a week and a half or so later.
It's wild.
Yeah, super wild.
My mom almost passed in my birth. Yeah, she.
Wow.
I was the last of 6 kids, and I was 2 months preemie.
Wow. That's very preemie.
Yeah, she got some really severe toxemia and stuff. In fact, she was in the hospital for months.
Wow.
I the joke in the family, I guess, is I almost killed my mom.
Yeah, totally.
Not much of a joke.
Yeah, only it's your brothers. But what was kind of wild in that time, my dad found himself with like a newborn baby and 7 kids, and the oldest was 11, my oldest sister, and what's ironic is that my mom, who was a little bit more entrepreneurial than my dad, I think at the time, my mom pushed my dad to start his own business, and he had just started his business I want to say 6 months or something prior to her passing.
Oh wow.
So kind of wild.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, for sure.
This mic, by the way, I don't know what's going on. Keep talking.
Is it not holding good?
It's not.
No, you're good. Yeah, tighten her up.
Talking. I'm gonna figure it out.
Okay, cool. So yeah, she had really kind of pushed him to start his own business, and he had worked for another family as a catering, salesman, and kind of learned a little bit about that business. And so they ended up, she encouraged him, and they ended up starting this catering company together. And, she was an artist, so she drew up the logo and everything and really kind of encouraged him strongly to do it. You're almost there.
Keep going.
You're probably gonna have to hold it.
Is it still dipping?
It's slowly dipping. It's all right. You hold it.
The joys of live podcasts, right?
For sure.
Brand new studio.
For sure.
I moved the mic around, and now I'm paying the price.
Yeah, there you go. So anyway, he had just started this business, had these little kids, and then she passed away, and so everything really changed for my family. So then I, because my dad was dealing with this family situation, there you go. I think you got it.
I think that might work as long as
don't touch it.
I'm delicate with it. She's a finicky
I'm
beast.
watching it.
Yeah.
I'm watching it.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, isn't it funny? We're tech guys and we can't get hardware and software to work right. So, so anyway, they started this thing, and my mom passed, and so my dad was stuck with all these little children, and so family members.
How many kids?
7 kids.
7 kids. You were the youngest of 7.
And I was the youngest of 7.
6. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I went to live with family for 9 months. I kind of got passed around.
Yeah.
And so that was that is the early trauma of how our family came to be. And so my dad found himself in a place where he had to provide and build something. I think your mic's dropping again.
Just ignore it. Just pretend I'll figure it
out. So anyway, he found himself having to figure out this business no matter what. So that just made it, my dad had no other options. And so, but to build this company,
right.
And so he did that, and growing up, we ended up all at some point working in the family business for years, all of my teenage years. In fact, I got to know my dad, I think, better.
And it was always a catering business.
Yeah, it was always a catering business, right. Weddings in LA, quinceañeras and all sorts of parties.
Those are fun parties.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. But grew up have you ever seen the movie The Wedding Singer?
Old school
parties, that's what it was like in the 90s. Right.
Yeah. You probably didn't mind that as a teenager with, doing the quinceañeras with all the Latin girls.
There were for sure cute
around.
girls at these parties, for sure. It was fun too, because like when I grew up in LA, like I was a minority, right? Most everyone, like at least half the people there in my high school were Mexican, right?
Yeah.
And another quarter were of some other thing, so they felt very at home. But yeah, like the parties were cool, but it like taught us how to work at a really young age. We all worked in the family business, like at some point. So other kids got to play on weekends, and we went to work. Because that's
early exposure to being an entrepreneur and building a business.
Yeah, and I don't know if I even like knew what entrepreneurship was at the time, but like I was always somebody who just kind of figured things out. Like I remember, when I was a kid, like I wanted to buy a bike. And so I saw somebody painting curbs, like doing numbers on curbs. And me and my brother were like, hey, let's go do that. And so I would sell and he would paint. And I was like 9. And so I remember it was a $300. Oh, yeah. I was knocking doors as a little kid. Who's going to tell me no?
At 9 years old.
Yeah, totally. And taking cash, right? Like who was going to say no? This is so long ago. And we'd have to like go to the store. We'd have our stepmom. So my dad got remarried like a year later, and my stepmom would take us to the store and buy, because we couldn't buy like rattle can spray paint by ourselves, right? That'd be illegal. So she would buy us the paint, and then we'd go do it. But I remember there was this bike I wanted. It was $300, and that was back then, like in the 90s. That was a lot of money, like a ton of money. Right. And I was like, oh yeah, we'll just, that's X amount of curbs. And so we would do it. So like if we wanted something, we would go paint curbs and then go buy it. And so it was always that way. Even when I was in high school, I mean, certainly my dad. How
much did you charge for a curb?
I want to say that we were making like $20 to $25 a curb back then.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, but it seemed reasonable.
Yeah, a 9-year-old, nobody's going to say no to $20. Like,
no way. No way. So that was cool. And it was just always kind of that way for me. Like, as a teenager, if I wanted something nicer, like, I wanted to buy the clothes at the nicer store. So I would just go work and do that instead of asking my dad if he would buy me clothes at the store.
I know that story. Yeah.
Totally.
Yep.
So anyway, but it was wild, like growing up in a big family. So after my dad got married, like there were 3 other siblings, and then they had one together. So there was 11 of us total under the same roof.
Wow.
So like we did our own laundry as kids, right? Like we did everything.
Yeah.
So
you learned to be independent at a very young age.
For sure. Yeah. For sure. So like I didn't even know what a job looked like.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's another way to describe it. Like I wasn't exposed. Like everyone was an entrepreneur in my extended family, like a big extended family. On my mom's side, there's like 100 first cousins, and they're almost all entrepreneurs. Like, have you heard of the startups building in Provo? Have you ever been to an event there in Provo?
The startups building?
Yeah, it's where it's the old candy factory. From the 30s, and that's where like Dev Mountain, the coding school was.
Yeah.
And so that was my mom's maiden name is Startup. And so my mom's family goes back to like pre-Great Depression doing candy.
Okay, so wait, your mom's maiden name is Startup?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, it was destiny.
It was
right?
destiny. Yeah, it was destiny. But it's wild to go to that building and like, some of my ancestors, like they were in the candy business as entrepreneurs. And at the time they were bigger than Hershey's, and didn't quite do very well after the Great Depression. But it's deep in our blood to be entrepreneurs. So I didn't really even know what it was like to get a job.
Yeah,
that would have been weird to me. So
I can imagine trying to get a job.
Yeah. I actually remember there was a point where I wanted to like figure out maybe getting a job. I had a brother that got a job at Cold Stone, and that was like kind of wild and out there.
Yeah.
Because he was doing some of the family business work and hours at like Cold Stone. Yeah. And I was like, I want to go get a job. And so I went to McDonald's and like, went to go fill out this paper application. And it was like, how do you do this? It just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
You're like, I just need to go just hustle and knock on doors.
Yeah, totally.
Sell something.
Yeah, exactly. So it just, I don't know. I've always like thought very independently, and probably a lot of that is because of just, there was a lot of us. Yeah.
Makes total sense. So let's talk about, you thought you were going to go into philosophy, like, pretty big divergence from philosophy to startup land to entrepreneurship, how'd that all go down? Like what attracted you to philosophy, and what did you think you were going to do with that?
Yeah. So, ironically, as I become like in adult years, right? I'm like 21, 22, and I'm looking at life and I'm thinking, man, my dad worked really hard and I saw feast and famine, right? Like the up and down nature of business. That's just how it is, right? Yeah. You know this, right? You're an entrepreneur, right? Yeah. Looks great all the time, but it's feast and famine inside. Yep. I didn't want that. I thought that was like, I'm a young adult. I'm now learning how life is. And I thought that was foolish, right? And I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to go get a job like the rest of these people, and they have like a really steady income and no stress.
Safe and secure benefits.
Yeah.
Have a safety net.
Right.
Don't have to rely on myself to make ends meet. Yeah.
And what's the coolest looking profession to a young man like going to college? Being a lawyer, right? Like, oh, those guys make a ton of money. They're in charge. They're well spoken. They can do that. Like that looked like success to me. Yeah. And so I was like, let's go do that. Mm-hmm. So then I start researching it. So out of all of the programs and studies at school, I was like, philosophy seems like it makes sense to me. And I really liked philosophy because it was the training on how to think, as opposed to like having me memorize a bunch of events and things that happened or formulas.
Seems like we need a lot more of that in the education system, right?
For sure.
Teach people how to think and actually do things, not just memorize things.
Yeah, totally. Like it just like made sense to, like it called to me, right? It made sense. Now school was still like, it came a little bit difficult to me. Yeah. Like I got good grades, but it felt much more forceful. Like I had to really try to do that, where I had these asshole roommates that would like not study and get straight A's in biology, right? Like there's these guys that were just built for it. Yeah. So it felt forceful. Then I met my wife and we got married, about halfway. I was in really my junior year or so. And about a year later, I'm studying pre-law and I'm going to like these lectures where they have lawyers come in and talk to pre-law students. And I'm getting close to taking the LSAT, like really close. Yeah. And I kind of like maybe overdo everything, or get very obsessive about things that I work on. And so I was like, well, I really want to know how this lawyer thing plays out. Now I should have done this a few years earlier. Yeah, right. Yeah. But what I did do is I was about to go to law school. So what I decided to do was write down 10 lawyers, call them up and interview them. Mm. And so there were 10 and 8 hated their lives, told me not to do it, all joked about it. You know how they are, right? Like lawyers always make fun of themselves. Yeah. Terrible profession. Don't do it, but great. It's awesome. Yeah. Anyway, so that was bad. And then there were 2 that stood out. One was this beautiful, like very confident. I remember she was blonde. I remember her name, but she was in Utah County and she was, a ball-busting divorce lawyer and just sweeping up men in the courtroom. And she loved it. Like you could tell she was energetic. She was passionate about it. And she enjoyed what she did. She knew she was doing the right thing. She was doing her calling and she loved it. Yeah. And that one stood out, I remember. And then another one stood out. And I meet with this guy and he's very energetic and happy. And he went to law school, then started working at a big firm, then quit, started his own law firm, and then sold it, and then started buying and selling businesses. Mm. So he wasn't even a lawyer anymore. Yeah. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, so then I started having these like really like personal questions about whether this was the right thing for me. And ultimately I decided it wasn't. And here's what's crazy. And here's how my brain works. Where I just like, if it doesn't work anymore, it doesn't serve, then let's stop doing it. Yeah. Literally that night after LSAT prep course, I decide I'm not going to do it. I go talk to my wife and I tell her what's up. And she's like, all right, well, what now? Yeah. Like, and I was like, well, I'm not going to go to school tomorrow. And she's like, what? Whoa. Like, and I was like, why? Why am I going to school? Yeah. I need to go start a business. And I'm like, why? Keep in mind, Earl, I had 3 classes left. I still have 3 classes left at BYU. So anyway, that very next day, I got up. Serious decision. Totally. Move. Like most people would be like, I'm just going to stick it out and then. Not me, dude. I'm crazy. So that next morning I got up early. I went to school. Yeah. I went to the BYU bookstore and I bought, I think it was 8 books on different types of things in business I should learn. One was on programming.
Yeah.
You know, one was on e-commerce. Another one was on like accounting, building websites. Like, so I just started teaching this. I obsessed over this every day.
Yeah.
I also didn't have a business idea yet.
Yeah.
So
did you have income?
No.
All right.
So I think at the time, I mean, barely income. I think at the time I was a TA for a teacher, and I was making like $7 an hour.
Yeah.
So basically no income. My wife was working and going to school too.
Okay.
But I needed to generate income, and I needed to think about what I was going to do next.
That's a supportive partner. Like,
yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah.
My wife's badass.
All right. Cool.
For sure.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Okay. So you go from, philosophy lawyer dropping out at the 11th hour,
literally.
to I'm going to build a business. And then, tell us a little bit about Scout and Jump, and then let's start getting into
totally.
The
that was so long ago.
Right.
So basically kind of here's the Reader's Digest. I'm in this position. I'm like, I need to like figure out some skills or something of value. I had done door-to-door sales a few times in the summer, like, summer programs that we see here in Utah.
Yeah.
And so I knew how to sell. But I was very focused still on going to school at the time when I was doing summer sales. So there was no like career path for me there, but it was a skill. So I called a few friends and family members that owned other businesses. And I said, hey, I just quit school. And this was my first idea I had within a week. And it was like, will you pay me to come and teach your salespeople how to sell? This is just an idea.
Self-consultant.
And a few of them said yes. And they're like, how much do you charge? And I just pulled a number out of the hat. That was $1,000 a week. Okay.
Right. So
like before I knew it, I was, making like, I don't know how much was that, like 12 grand a month or something. And I just left school, and I was like, oh, this shit's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. This is so awesome.
This is way better than being in law school.
Way better than being law school. I'm making more than a lawyer would.
Yeah.
And, and they said yes. And then I produced these things for them, and it brought value.
Yeah.
And one of those was a family member of mine, a cousin who owned a pest control company. And I was teaching his team how to sell, and he was trying to take a door-to-door program approach to like sell pest control over the phone.
Yeah.
So he owned a pest control company, and I was teaching his salespeople how to do this. And so that client became the first company that I started that was Scout. And so we decided to spin off a company out of that and create marketing services for other like home service companies. And so Scout was basically a lead generation tool at the start to generate leads for home service companies. And so
was it tech or services?
So it started out as pure services, and then we started building tech. We started building like dashboards and reporting for them. But this was back in like 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
So like this was very early for me in tech.
Yeah.
And so my first exposure to like anything technical at this point, other than what I had kind of taught myself in programming.
Yeah.
That was the intro to it, was Scout. So, but it was both a service and software. So, anyway, and so we grew that, and it was great. We made a ton of mistakes. Like we were pretty much bootstrapped. We used debt and some of our own money. This was the cool part, is that, so I was the co-founder on this one. This one I was invited to like join, and which was great for me to learn. Like it was the biggest opportunity for me to learn. And then I eventually acquired more ownership in the company. But like the money I was making right out of quitting school, I was just hoarding all of that. And then I used most of that to buy in and help invest and start the company.
There you go.
And so I wouldn't have been able to do that as like a shareholder partner kind of deal had I not like, bit the bullet and started generating some sort of income or some sort of revenue.
Well, and you could have gone and spent all that 12 grand a month too.
Easily.
Right? Yeah.
Easily.
I mean, especially at a young age, like
for sure.
Had my eye on that Porsche for quite a while,
For sure. Yeah.
So it took some discipline.
It did. Yeah. It did. Eventually I bought the Porsche though.
Yeah. I know you have. I know you have. We're going to get into that.
We'll get into it. But yeah, so that was great. My cousin, he was older, more experienced than me in business, and he taught me a ton of stuff, and he was a great mentor to me early on. But I saw that there was kind of like a limit on where the business was going to go. Like just there wasn't as much alignment with the group. And so I offered to sell my shares back to the other shareholders, like the other group that, owned the business as well.
Right.
And they were into it. And so they bought me out. And that was in earlier 2016.
Okay.
And I knew that I wanted to go build a SaaS company, like a true vertical SaaS company.
Yeah.
And I thought I wanted to raise capital and do the whole thing.
Yep.
And
Get
that
venture backed. And
and that seemed like an opportunity to do it. And so we used a lot of the money from selling out a Scout to then fund and start Jump.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you went and used your own money to start that.
Pretty much.
Yeah. A lot of, I think, some of the other kind of misconceptions and lessons you can take from this stuff is, first off, I think, I'm a huge fan of bootstrapping, 26 years into it. Right. And I've done multiple ventures bootstrapped. You took a risk. I mean, I see a lot of entrepreneurs, or at least budding entrepreneurs think that, they in order to build a business, they have to go raise capital.
Right.
And the reality is, if you don't have some significant traction, you don't have a product, you don't have clients.
Right.
And in today's world, likely if you're not, profitable, you're probably not going to raise capital. Like, you've got to put your neck on the line. And in this case, I mean, you quit school, and then you went and put your own money on the line to build, to start building Jump, not somebody else's money. Right. Those are some of the realities. Right. The other thing that I think just comes up is if you're going to go build a business, you got to be pretty comfortable with making yourself very uncomfortable. Like you got to be pretty comfortable with risk and doing scary things and betting big, especially, I mean, it's hard. I mean, I started a family at a young age like you, married at 22, my first kid at 23 when I started my business at 23.
Right.
Those are hard times to, and you have a mortgage.
It's hard on you and your family.
And your family, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
Everyone's sacrificing.
Totally. Yeah.
There's and it is scary. I think there's this idea that that maybe entrepreneurs are a little different. I think we're different. I do think that we're different. I think objectively we have traits that, bode well for taking risk.
Yeah.
And we have some appetite for growth and risk. So, but there's this idea though that you're a different kind of human, or like you're special or something in some way, and you're really not, right? You're susceptible to the same emotions that everyone else is. So there's this quote by John Wayne that I love, and talks about courage. And he says, courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway. And that's, I think, what outlines being an entrepreneur, because it doesn't mean you're unafraid. It just means you're willing to go do it.
You're just going to go for it.
Yeah. For sure.
Despite the risk,
for sure.
Despite being scared, you're gonna make the bet and gamble and
totally
do the work and
totally
and hustle, and you're willing to go put in the effort and the long hours. And
what's cool about it is that just sheer numbers, if you look at it really logically, most people are too scared to do something, right? So if you do have an idea and you are willing to actually go perform, go do it, it's not going to go well for sure. But if you're willing to get started, just the sheer numbers of you being the few and willing to do it, the likelihood is much greater that you might be successful, right?
Totally. I mean, I know, for example, I have friends who, got the MBA, came from, families who had, built successful businesses in the past, kind of had a leg up on those of us that didn't have that sort of pedigree.
Yeah.
And out the gate, they still fumble like the rest of us.
Totally.
Your first startup is probably going to be a total disaster, and you might figure it out, and you might, finally get some traction and, build something real and sell it, but oftentimes it's going to take several versions of iteration before you really start to figure out how to build a business.
And I think that's true. And with my first company, Scout, had I not partnered with my cousin who had already built a business. It wasn't crazy big, but he had experience enough to know how to do payroll and what accounting looked like and how to forecast a little bit, right? Just some of the basic stuff.
Yeah.
And
go to market and some sales.
For sure. Like we could kind of figure this thing out together. I mean, that helped me, create a more likelihood of success. I think, even though it was still, feels minor, looking back, but it was a good step. Like, I mean, we still generated like 3.5 million in sales. We did. We had about 50 people at our peak, before I sold out. So like it was something. I was like 25 or something, 26. I was really young.
That's significant.
Yeah, for sure. And so for some, but you're right. I think like just getting the ball rolling and actually like doing something, it's like, I don't know. Some people think about failure as like, all right, if I go out and try this, I will fail or succeed. And they look at failure as like one big event. Failure is just like small little things you learn along the way.
Pretty much daily.
Like you iterate and improve the whole time. Yeah. So failure doesn't have to be like, oh, this thing went out of business, but that's a whole other topic.
I think we have the wrong relationship with failure in our society. Honestly.
For sure.
Like, I mean, I think we have experiences in life, and some of those experiences are for enjoyment and some are for learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, as an entrepreneur, you got to get really used to, a mindset around failure of not letting it affect your perception of your own self-worth or your belief in yourself to pick yourself back up and actually do something, right? Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I feel like we should eliminate the word failure from our vocabulary. And it's not that I don't think that I'm all for building a strong mentality, right? And being strong individuals, regardless of the circumstances. But I just think in general, like society, we're scared to do so many things because of our perception of what failure is,
Yeah. And I mean, again, going on the same topic, I think it has more to do with how we think people might look at us.
Totally.
Which is weird, right? Who gives a shit?
We're so self-conscious.
Right? Like, because if you were alone and no one was ever going to see it, would you be more willing to try it?
Yeah, totally.
Of course you would, right? Because like no one's going to judge you, right? It's not that scary.
If there was no real risk and nobody totally. Yeah. Okay, so let's get back into Jump here.
Okay.
Let's talk about.
So I took a bit of a break. I looked at, after like Scout, and it was like, I knew what I wanted to do by the time I had sold out of Scout. Like, I wanted to solve a similar problem that we were solving for customers there, but I wanted to do it with software, like no services.
Yeah.
I wanted to build an automated platform that lets you generate reviews, publish, listings across, multiple channels. And I thought that this is something that customers could do themselves if we built them a platform. It was more cost effective. It was just simpler. So we started building that right away. And I put money in to get that going. So that's essentially what we did. And then we brought in some debt. And then I took a couple of team members with me as well from the Scout deal. Two in particular that had a huge impact on the business. And then we started building a sales team, and like I said, we raised some debt, and then that took us to our Series A. We raised about 10 million total in the company, and got that to about 80, I want to say it was 84, 85 people or so. So this was like 5 years ago now. It's been a while, but to get an idea of the stage, we were like entering kind of the growth stage. And there was a lot happening in that space. Like we were building a marketing tech tool, and there was a lot happening, and there were other competitors that were starting to enter the market, and it was starting to get kind of hot, and sales were fast, man. Like we sold a lot of businesses, like it was something like 4,000 customers or something. And just like,
wow, I
don't know, 2 years or so.
Yeah. That's kind of impressive.
Yeah. It was kind of wild. Yeah. It was really wild.
So what happened with Jump? What'd you do with that?
So we sold Jump in tail end of 2019. Okay. And so basically we raised timing. Yeah, I know, right before the pandemic. The pandemic would have been really rough. But had we survived, here's how I think about it. Had we survived the pandemic and didn't sell, which we would have survived the pandemic, and then we would have got into 2021, which was a heyday, right? And that might have changed some things, but who knows? So basically with Jump, I'd started recruiting like really, really high pedigree people, really impressive executives. I started to build out a really good team. We started building like partner programs. Like it was becoming more sophisticated, much more sophisticated than I was.
More mid-stage kind of business.
Definitely.
Not startup.
Yeah. Like growth stage, right? Like, like I had people hiring people. Hiring people. That was kind of wild. When after you got to like 50 people, I no longer knew everyone's first name like very easily. And that was kind of wild. And we started building. We were burning, a bunch of money using the investment to grow, and we were growing. But we started. It became clear that to keep up the growth, we're going to need to raise our Series B a little sooner. And the Series B, for most people that don't understand, most startups go to die between the Series A and the Series B. For those few that raise capital, even there, like that,
make it or break it.
Yes, it is. It is, and it's scary. And so, like, we went out to raise our Series B, and it was mostly going well, but we were growing so fast. All the growth investors, these are very large institutional, multi-billion-dollar fund managers. Were basically saying, "You're growing really fast. We love it. Give us 1 or 2 more quarters to see if you can keep it up." We're like, "Damn you, you know." And so, we had a runway. We had a couple $1 million in the bank still, but we were, burning a good chunk of cash. And so there was not infinite cash. At some point, it's going to run out, right? And so we started raising a little bit more money, and then it just so happened that we got approached by a couple of companies within a couple of weeks of each other.
Strategic.
And it was weird. Maybe somebody kind of friend of a friend maybe tipped them off or something. I never asked. I've always wondered though, like how they knew. But they reached out, and when I say how they knew, they like that maybe I was in a vulnerable state as a leader, like about how we were thinking about fundraising and how we were going to continue growing and all that kind of stuff. And so they reached out, and I was kind of like, that's interesting. And so we ended up working through that for like, I don't know, the next 5 months to a sale in Q4 of 19.
Okay. So you probably did a bit of an earn out.
Exactly. So as an earn out, we got bought by a little private equity group based in Chicago that was buying up marketing tech companies. And then after we got acquired, the whole thing was sold to Reputation.com. So Reputation.com now owns our
the product. Owns the tech.
And they still use it.
Cool. That's
kind of
cool
wild.
It
was wild. Like super emotional, really hard. I've never been more, anxious or maybe even insecure in my life, like about that decision. Like 1, to take it to the board, and then 2, to like do it or not do it. So that was a wild time, because when you're building a company like that, like you're spending hours and hours. I'm spending way more time with my people than I am with my wife. Right? Like, these are your close friends, and this impacts their lives too. And so, I feel like it just changed a lot of things, and that was really hard.
You touched on a bit of an intangible that I want to focus in on a little bit, Chad. And that is that businesses have different stages. And those different stages bring about different moments of inflection and potential evolution for you as a leader and a founder. Like, particularly in tech, there's a lot of founders who kind of know their vein. There, you got the 0 to 1 million kind of people. You got the 1 to 10 million. You got the 10 to 100 million kind of people, and they know their vein, and they don't really journey outside that vein. And when it comes time, and they're kind of hitting up on that head, or they know, like, I can get this through to, I can do this, pre-seed, seed. I can get this up to a Series A, and then I can hand it off, right? Or I can do Series A, up to Series A, and then I can hand it off, before Series B. You have a lot of those types of founders out there who kind of stick to that model. Not a lot, at least anymore, that I see. Because especially once you become venture backed, your timeline horizons change, and of course you got a board and investors who are requiring milestones to be hit and requiring liquidity events to happen. A lot of entrepreneurs don't have the opportunity to kind of step through those different stages and phases of the business and really learn how to make themselves very uncomfortable and stretch from early stage startup, growth, scale up, later stage. Those are very different. Like the look and feel of the business,
totally,
the culture, your organizational structure, your process and procedure and systems, it all changes at every, we basically stripped back to the bare bones over the last couple of years, re-engineered the entire business because we hit an inflection point of growth that we just had to we had to mature and
and I think a lot of it has to do with leadership development and how you're growing your company, and not just leadership development in the sense of all right, you have a leadership title, but people, individuals, teams that can lead, right? Self-leadership. Because when you're running a growth business, especially a VC-backed business, because a VC-backed business is going to grow faster. It's going to go boom or bust, and it's going to happen over a very short period of time. And the pressure that you get as an individual working at one of those companies, let alone a leader, is that you have to grow at least at the same rate as the company is growing. So if you think you're a whiz in Excel or Python or whatever it is you're using, right? You're great at selling. You were great at selling where you were, maybe, but maybe you don't know how to do it and keep up with a quota that doubles over the next quarter, right? It just sort of brings a different version of you out of you, and if it doesn't, then you're not a fit, right? So as a leader, as a CEO, it's your job to grow at least at the same rate the company is growing, which is fast.
At minimum, you have to.
Correct.
And I mean, thinking about the concept that culture is leadership behavior scale throughout the organization, all the leaders have to commit to. I've got to grow my not only my capabilities and skills, in the business, my business acumen, my leadership capabilities, but my self-awareness and the way I show up as a person, right? I have to change and evolve and morph into a better version of myself all the time, right? Which it's not always comfortable,
No, it's very uncomfortable. The train is moving. Get on or get off, right? That's kind of the thing. And the business is going to move forward, even with or without the CEO, right? So if it's a growth company, but so that was there was a lot of good learning experiences in that. There's some things where, I made a lot of mistakes as a first-time founder, that looking back now, hopefully I don't repeat again, but it was a great sandbox to be able to learn and see what works and what works quickly.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about how, going from Jump into Distro, so you do an earn out, probably take a little bit of time off.
Yeah, I took some time off. I did some consulting for, some friends. I had a friend who's building a software company and a team, and I helped him for a little bit. I was on his advisory board, helped some other friends launch their own startup for a minute. And the pandemic happened, and it kind of forced me for even longer to kind of have time at home, which was great because I got to make up a lot of lost time with my, we had our first son, our first child, my son. And it was great to just slow down and take time with him. And then I started driving race cars, which we're going to ask me about. So that
came after Jump. Yes.
It came after Jump. Okay. I keep a dream book and I write down things that I want to do and accomplish at some point.
Bucket list, yeah,
totally.
Yeah,
and but I plan on doing them, right? And so one of those was to compete in a professional off-road race. And so my dad had passed away towards the tail end of COVID, not from COVID, but I drove it a little bit too hard and broke. So, which is another thing, you know, going fast is about knowing when to go fast.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So, especially in off-road. So
that makes sense. Okay.
Getting to the finish line. You know, what's funny is that, so one of our core values at Jump was, fast is better than slow. And if you talk to any of my old employees that are like angry at me and, you know, still listening today, it would be that they thought that speed was a trade-off for quality. Right. And that's what anyone would always say.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the funny thing is the fastest race car drivers are the best at braking. So knowing when to go slow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. And because most cars in any sanctioned race are running the same horsepower, right? They're running the same speed. And so when anyone's on the throttle, it's essentially the same.
Same. Yeah.
So how much deeper can you go into a corner? When should you brake? How long should you brake? So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The parallels to building a business, especially a growth stage, you know, scale up, you know, that's, I like that. That's nice. Where are your races at usually?
So we do off-road racing. So they're desert endurance races. So like they'll work with the BLM to close down like hundreds of miles of desert.
Yeah.
And so most races are in Nevada, Arizona, California, and some in Utah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds fun.
It's pretty fun. Yeah. So we'll go to those races. We'll do like 5 a year, and they're really intense getting ready for them, and then doing them, and then recovering from them. You know, so I'll be in the car like 8 to 12 hours usually. There's a couple of shorter races that are like 4 or 5 hours, but they're long races.
Yeah. Yeah, you think about that. I mean, that's kind of hard on the body and mind, you know?
Oh, it's insane. It takes like a few days to recover.
Trying to figure out hydration and getting a little bit of food, but you don't have anywhere to...
Yeah, so we don't eat. Yeah, so we don't eat during the race generally, but I have hydration hooked up in my helmet so I can drink. And then we take an IV the night before.
Okay, all right.
And that helps a lot too.
Yeah. Chad's office, by the way, if you've never been there, it's kind of a mix of office and shop.
I just moved out.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. So you moved offices. So did I at the same time.
Okay.
So yeah, our lease was up, and I'm now building a race shop back at my house.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, which would be great. I'll be home more because I was gone so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was cool. It was the ultimate man cave office. It was fun.
So we're winding down a little bit on time. Let's talk a little bit more about Distro. I do want to share with everybody we got about just shy of 10 minutes.
Yeah, totally.
Let's tell everybody a little bit about what you're up to at Distro and what your kind of your key learnings have been so far there. Yeah.
So Distro, you know, like at the tail end of race, like I raced my first season, it went really well. And I was like, I need to start another company. I just knew my wife kind of would describe me as not quite a zombie, but kind of a little bit like low energy. Like I just didn't have the same kind of passion and just in life in general. And I was already thinking about this business.
You weren't building anything.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I had already like done the racing, like got that going, you know, and I kept thinking about this problem that I had about building remote teams. And so talking to some of my friends running other big growth companies, VC backed companies. And I was like, you guys having problems like hiring people, particularly technical people? And they're all like, yeah, it's insanely expensive. It's hard to find people. Every quarter I get asked for a raise by every one of them, you know, because they're all getting recruited. And we're talking technical people, mostly like software engineers, product managers, designers, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so I was like, their only option is to go and hire a dev shop, you know, or an outsourcing company or something like that.
Let them deal with the talent problem.
Yeah, exactly. And just kind of like outsourcing on a contract, but it comes with its own challenges. And so I was like, why can't we create a platform to let, you know, companies hire great people all over the world? And so I'm like, let's do it. So creating a platform. So Distro is a platform to help companies hire talent in over 200 countries. There's thousands of people in the Distro platform today that are looking for full-time jobs. And we wrote our own AI to help qualify English and match their skills to our customers. And so, it creates an awesome opportunity for a company that says, okay, I want to build a remote team. I want to save some money because the payroll is less. And I want to go faster. And so they can come to Distro and get matches, you know, today and start interviewing people to hire them. And so that's essentially what Distro is as a platform today.
Very cool. Very cool. Tell us about, a little bit about how it's going.
It's going pretty good. So, we formed the team in like late 2021. We went to market in 22. And so it's been a couple of years in market now. And it's going really well. Today we're profitable. I funded it again to get started. At some point we may take VC funding, but the market's kind of wild right now.
It's weird. It's wonky.
Yeah, it's definitely wonky. And so the best thing
it's
we
not
could
a founder friendly time to take.
No, it's definitely not. Despite us like growing and being profitable and bootstrapped and stuff.
Yeah.
It's still kind of a rough time for sure.
Yeah.
But overall, it's going really well. We're adding more and more customers. We don't have any dedicated salespeople at the time or at this time. So all of our sales have been inbound, and we were able to sell a few million in sales like really fast. Within a little over a year.
That's good news.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
So it tells us we're solving a real problem, and we're gonna continue doing it. And Distro's free to use. We essentially just take a cut on the payroll. So when you hire somebody, we monetize a little bit.
You become the employer of record, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So you take care of all the legalities and payroll and benefits and all that kind of stuff in the country. Of the employee. Yeah. Of course, there's a fee for doing all that.
Yeah, for sure.
That makes a whole lot of sense. Are your clients mostly around the country, or do you have clients globally right now?
We have a lot of Utah customers for sure, but I would say like 25 to 30% of our business is outside of Utah.
Yeah.
We've also had like other English speaking countries, come to us asking, can we use services? And we've had a few sign up, but the benefits for them are the same, being able to hire in other countries for sure. But we're pretty much all over the country. But we have thousands of people from over 200 countries in Distro today.
That's super cool.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Thank you. Yeah, user count keeps growing and traffic keeps growing and it's paying off. So
do you market to talent, or are you doing PPC or anything?
No,
really?
we are doing. We figured out a way to start inviting people, and kind of in an MLM kind of strategy. We have other people invite other people.
I mean, you're headquartered in Utah County.
We are headquartered in Utah County, so it's not that weird, right? But like, I mean, they don't get paid for it, but they refer people, and so we have more and more people joining the platform every day. Like some days we'll have 50 people join the platform, which is a lot for how small we are. Totally. When we're talking on a daily basis, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
So it's I mean, we don't have it all figured out, but it's going pretty well. And we're not doing any PPC or ads, but we've gone pretty deep in SEO, and our traffic continues to grow. Our content
purely organic right now.
It's all organic.
Inbound, both on the talent and on your client side.
It's all inbound right now.
Man, that's I mean, and to get there in 2 years with decent revenue and profitability, like very, very few SaaS, B2B SaaS companies do that. Like,
correct.
That's nice job.
Thank you.
Mallory, any interesting questions that we should get to before we kind of get to final questions? Yeah. All right. So Chad, we got just a few minutes here, maybe 4 minutes or so. I know, we had some topics we wanted to get through. I think we've talked a little bit about, fundraising versus bootstrapping and stuff. We talked a little bit about maybe pedigree versus DNA.
Yeah.
Maybe let's talk just a minute about that, and then let's kind of wind up with you talking about maybe your greatest learning. Your biggest piece of wisdom and nugget for all the founders out there.
Yeah, totally. So the first thing is, DNA over pedigree is what you asked, right?
Yeah.
So somebody taught me this a really long time ago, and I never forgot. Sometimes we find ourselves like creating a structure for what success should be exactly like, and it can be very prescriptive. And so we start going out and looking for people that have worked at the best companies and that have done the best things. And just because it worked for them, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And so you find yourselves like hiring the best people. Like, you got to stop doing that, especially for most companies that are like under 10 million in revenue, or, maybe under 20 million in revenue. Hire people that are willing to learn, like willing to screw up, willing to try new things. Right. Mm-hmm. Because, I had an executive coach at one point that taught me this saying. He said, be careful about hiring experienced people, because you hire them and they do what they did.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean it's going to work for you. They go through their playbook because it worked somewhere else.
Not necessarily innovative.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about somebody who was successful 3 years prior doing something else somewhere else. And there's definitely good learnings from that, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for you, right? You shouldn't have that expectation. So I think hiring people, getting to the core of who they are, what makes them tick, why do they get out of bed in the morning, what motivates them. And I have done so much better hiring people that don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It
growth mindset. People that are willing to challenge themselves, willing to learn, and you kind of love that thrill of like stretching themselves, you know? That makes a whole lot of sense. In
a learning, you know, for me, I mean, there's so many, but for current, you know, founders, you know, get very clear about the problem you're trying to solve and solve it very, very, very well. It's so easy to chase rabbits and squirrels, rabbits, whatever, right? Like, and get distracted. But synthesize what it is that you're trying to do and do it very, very, very good.
Hyper focus.
Yeah.
Be the best at, even if it's just the one thing, you know,
Correct.
like, you know, when you're an early stage startup, you aren't GE. You can't have, you know, businesses in 30 different lines. Different industries and stuff. You know, you can't do that. You know, there's just no way. You'll kill yourself. I learned that lesson the hard way, you know, as well.
Right.
Because you as an entrepreneur, oftentimes you have lots of ideas and you're like, oh, well, we do this pretty well. And like, it's kind of applicable here. And I think we can just, you know,
for sure.
It's like, no, just hyper focus on that one thing, you know?
Definitely.
Yeah. I think that that's a really great piece of wisdom. Hopefully that's helpful to everybody. I guess one other just, you know, final kind of comment, you know, on the DNA versus pedigree thing, you know, brings up the idea for me, so often as entrepreneurs and especially early stage, and I was the same way, you feel like there's some magic formula out there that all the really successful entrepreneurs are following, and it's the exact same formula. You think, right? And that's the thing. It's not. Like, almost every single business and every success story has a very, very different journey. And the way that they build success, extremely different, you know, when you compare them side by side. There's no one way. And the formulas that work in one business or one industry or one time period don't necessarily work in another.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you one example just to kind of finish. I'm gonna use the real logo because it, you know, might piss some people off, and some of these people are my friends too. But like, you know, Divvy exited and sold for a ton of money here in Utah, right? And it was fantastic. And they recruited some of the best people around from outside of Utah. Even it was incredible. They did a great job. And now we have this like kind of Divvy mafia coming out of this, right? All these people that worked there, and it's great. I'm stoked for them. Some of them have raised money, and some will raise money. But so often I can see it, you know, from a multi-time founder, that they are trying to repeat some of the same things that went there.
Take their playbook.
And though it's like applicable in many ways, you have to make sure that you're stepping back to solve the problem that you are solving. Does that make sense? It may have worked really well for Blake, but may not work quite as well for you. So we'll see how that plays out. But
isn't it super interesting that super often you see you know, a startup really hit like Divvy, right? And the team, you know, they go and either try to do something different, or, you know, they split up into little groups and, you know, do 4 or 5 different little startups, and they all kind of think that same playbook is going to work. And so often that second round, it again, is just falls flat, right? And until we all come to the realization, like, it's just not formulaic. You got to really get deep and be real with yourself and get innovative and ask yourself really quality questions and
totally,
you know, find creative solutions and all that kind of stuff all the time.
And the good news is, at some point you'll hit a wall and be like, oh, that's not working. Let me make a change. Right. Like, that's the good news. Right. So who knows who's right? But I just think that entrepreneurs need to keep their mind open on solving the problem that they're trying to solve and solve it really well.
Yeah. Good wisdom. I like that a lot. Thanks. Chad, it's been a lot of fun to have you on. I really appreciate the time. We appreciate the audience. We hope everybody had a good time as well and learned some cool things from my buddy Chad. Keep inspiring, keep building, keep racing, doing lots of cool things.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Okay, man.
It.
Yeah. See y'all.